Welcome to Essence of the Tree. We're here today on this beautiful February day to talk about pruning Japanese maples. And I'm going to hopefully give you some information about tools as well as technique to know how to direct your trees to how you want them to be. I was once told by a wise pruner that the tree knows exactly how to grow, that we prune the tree for our own needs, not the needs of the tree. It's important to have the right tools to be able to do the best job you can pruning. These are the tools we use here in the nursery. My most loved tool are the garden cut shears, which I carry with me everywhere I go when I'm in the nursery. You can get exactly where you need to go. They're virtually indestructible. We have them everywhere doing everything here in the nursery. The concave cutters are wonderful. The angle of the blade allows you to reach in and get to a cut at the perfect angle. They're an overlapping bite, so it's a very good, clean cut. This is what I do when I go out pruning. This is the primary tool that I use. I also have the knob cutters. The knob cutters are for going into the cut when you have a larger cut. They're rounded, and they can actually take a bite out of the cut, so that as the cambium heals over, you end up with a nice smooth scar. For larger branches, when you're needing to do some pruning on your larger trees, this is the Pocket Boy. The Pocket Boy has extra fine teeth. The cut is extremely smooth. It's small enough that it gets into even the smallest, tightest locations. And of course, very handy that it goes right into, comes with a carrying case that I particularly like, keeping it safe. When you're pruning, and it's a good idea, especially with larger cuts, to use a spray application of Phyton 27, which is a broad spectrum fungicide, bactericide. It's just like putting an antibiotic on a wound in order to, just as a preventative measure. And then we use the Phytec 50, which is a wonderful cut paste, primarily beeswax, that will seal the wound, and it stays there for at least a year. I've had it stay on trees and wounds as they heal for over 2 years. These are my mother's tools. I believe in having good tools. They last for generations. These are some of my most treasured possessions. These tools are all available on our website. You can go to our website, www.essenceofthetree.com, and find any of these tools there. Thank you. It's always important to consider the nature of the tree before you begin pruning, and understand whether its habit is to be upright or weeping and cascading. It's important to know that whether the tree is vigorously growing or whether it's a slow-growing tree. The response of the tree is what you need to understand, because what you are doing is directing the energy of the tree. For health, a crossing branch, this is a perfect example of a crossing branch. This is emerald lace, one of the weeping cascading diseptums. Extremely vigorous tree, and it's just completely looped back around on itself. I wish I had picked this up last year, but at this point I have two choices. This is an obvious and absolutely must happen coming across like this. So we'll do that first, and then we can decide whether we want to move the energy of the tree in this direction, or whether we want to completely eliminate this, which is somewhat conflicting visually with this branch. This branch on top, the branches on top always dominate. They get the most sun, so they will win if there's going to be a competition. So I am going to move this branch in this direction, which means I'm taking it to this collar here, like that. Over time, this will slowly become, becomes the movement of the tree. Japanese maples have bilateral buds, which means they have sets of buds that emerge opposite of one another on this stem. They also, on the next internode, after the space between the buds, are alternating so that the next set of buds will grow in the opposite direction. That gives you some idea of where the growth is going to take place as you're making choices about pruning. When we make cuts, we want to keep our cuts within the collar of the tree. This is a perfect example so you can see what the collar of the tree looked like. You can see there's a change in the tissue where the new branch comes out. When you make the cut, you'll want to be flush with the original branch and stay within that collar, and you'll have a nice, clean, well-healed wound. Once again, why we prune for our own needs, both the pragmatic and the aesthetic, and we also prune for the health of the tree. We can see where there's no future for a branch except for a problem. Here we have an example of two branches that are competing. These two branches are competing for the same space. Nature will, in time, the weaker of the two will die back. However, that may not leave us with the form that we want. The thing to do here is to come to this tree, to this branch, and cut right at the collar. We're going to cut just above the collar. The collar is the point where the branch separates itself from the parent branch. And make the cut with my wonderful concave cutters that put it exactly where it needs to be. You can already see that this removes the competition and leaves an open air space. Light and air is what we're after for beauty with our trees. Here's another example of a crossing branch. There's nothing here that this branch can do but interfere with the parent branch. We can either come to here, which is certainly a first cut. However, this is moving inward and doesn't do anything to affect the beauty of the tree and can easily be removed. That's already a dramatic improvement in the tree. We can see now that there's open space here for the tree to move outward. Eventually, we may end up taking this branch off because it is pretty close to this. You don't want to ever take more than a third of the structure of a tree off. It compromises the strength of a tree, especially in a young tree. This is an example of competing branches. The crotch in these, you never want three branches coming out of the same place. It makes a weak point on the tree. And it also provides opportunities for debris to settle. We cut out I cut out the center branch usually, and I can use my concave cutters, my knob cutters here, which are a wonderful tool for creating a good clean seal on the wound. The cambium just heals right over. It opens up the center so that the cambium can heal right over. We do always, whenever you cut a wound like this that is the water won't flow right off of it, there's potential for deposit, you always want to be sure you cut paste it. I always cut paste any wound that's more than a quarter. Cut paste is particularly important on a wound where it's at least a quarter inch and larger and has potential for holding moisture or debris. That's where the insects and the disease can enter in. This cut paste is Phytech 50, and it's primarily beeswax. The beauty of it is it's not ugly, and it'll stay there as long as the wound needs it. I've had it on trees for 2 years while the cambium slowly moves over and heals.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Here's a good example of the healing process. This branch was cut. It was a major cut to direct the growth of this bonsai, and the cut was made probably 5 years ago, and we call them belly buttons, and affectionately so. But having been covered with cut paste, it's just now, I would say within the next 2 years, it'll completely heal over. Using the knob cutters to go into the wound, you can produce a beautiful, clean, smooth wound.